bit of an awkward spot to cut things off last time, but I didn't really have much of a choice. There's just a bit too much that's about to happen for me to save in a timely manner. And I don't mean more random encounters, though. I have to say, it's quite a downgrade to go from fighting against mini mages and those Toadger things to go back to fighting against goblins. And apparently, I've discovered what the auto-fight button is on the PSP version of the game. Let's see if I remember that later on. Okay, apparently Baron's Air Force arrived just before we did to this castle. And they just did a casual carpet bombing of it. That can't be good. Bloody hell. Just what kind of anti-air defenses would a castle like that even have, anyway? Archers and mages? Certainly not SAM sites, that's for sure. Apparently there's not going to be much to explore in this castle. Still, hopefully there's at least a few survivors of that attack. Of course it was too much. Most of your soldiers had melee weapons and they hit you with a damn airstrike. Dear God! They looted the place too, not just the crystal. I don't suppose we can carry this guy to the healing pots, can we? Maybe offer some potions and healing magic to the few who aren't outright dead just yet? Look, I know you're grieving, old man, but I'm pretty sure the bard is equally emotionally devastated by all this. Well, at least he's only beating the bard down with his stick instead of setting him on fire or something. It doesn't look like he's going to be all that rational either. Wait, she's alive? Then let's see if we can render any kind of aid to her. All the nameless characters are probably pretty screwed, but since she has a name, maybe that means... Oh, shit, she does not have a personal portrait. That's not quite confirmation she's gonna die, but it's certainly not confirmation she'll live either. Never heard of him before, but he's suddenly the new captain of the force that Cecile used to be in command of. That certainly seems out of nowhere, but then we're still in the early game. They can get away with introducing crap out of nowhere at this stage. He'll only get obnoxious if they continue to do so. We were told about healing pots somewhere around here. I would have liked to have seen some people trying to hustle to save her, even if the Scram's demands that she doesn't make it, at least put up an effort. Both Tella and Rydia know white magic, and a dying soldier seemed to think if he reached something called healing pots, he'd make it. I assume everyone in the Red Wings who still has doubts has either been silenced or is going along despite their conscience, and it certainly seems like Tella went from grief to anger in a hurry. I'm pretty sure you're gonna need help at some point since he has an army at his back. Bit of an annoying reason to take him out of the party, really, but hey, credit where it's due. I can't think of too many hot-blooded old men in fiction. Usually that's a young man's job. Ouch! Just ouch! I mean, on the one hand, the guy lost his fiancée and quite a few other people that he knows and cares about. You can't just shrug that off. On the other hand, Rydia watched her mother die, her village burned to the ground around her, and was essentially adopted on the spot by one of the men responsible for that happening. I don't want to compare how rough things are for them, but frankly I feel like Edward deserved at least a night to collect himself. Instead, he's been assaulted by his father-in-law, berated by a child, and now slapped by a knight. He is just not having a good day. You don't get to phrase that as a question, Cecile. You are forcing an emotionally broken man to put his feelings aside for a while. Excuse me for feeling that's a bit of a dick move there, even if it is to save your own girlfriend. I also can't help feeling annoyed that saving Rosa from this never really explained desert fever is somehow more important than Baron gaining a second crystal. I'm pretty sure the crystal should have had more focus here. So, we're still a party of 3 then, and I have the distinct feeling Cecile is going to continue to be our most valuable combatant, though Rydia has been growing at a rapid pace. Wait, why did her corpse disappear while everyone else is just laying there? Is it just a thing that people's bodies disappear when they're dead after a certain amount of time in this world? I mean, sure, the game is grim enough as it is, so we probably don't want to bother showing graves being dug and filled, but I do not think she was a Jedi who just became one with the Force or something to that effect. And I'm pretty sure she wasn't the only person who died in that attack. There were a lot of other bodies there that did not fade away. I know it's probably not something that I'm supposed to think about, but it was treated like a pretty major moment in the game, so it's hard not to try to pay attention to the details. And since someone in-universe mentioned there are healing pots, the fact that nobody in that scene actually tried to do anything to help her felt off. They already gave up on her the instant they saw her laying on the ground. For God's sakes, her father didn't even bother to check for a pulse before he started beating on Edward here. She was still alive and he skipped right ahead to rage. Okay, so that's the healing pots we were told about. And this is the exact same floor that Anna died on. Bloody hell, I get that this game is really experimenting with storytelling and all that, but we had an absolutely brilliant opening with the destruction of Mist. We know they can do better than this. Sir, we could give you a lift to that village. Granted, I don't know how many seats are on the hovercraft, but the game's party system gives us a total of 5 slots, and we've only got 3 people right now. I'm sure if this was a more modern game that we'd have a side quest to take these people back to the previous town. Now, I wouldn't say that this game doesn't have side quests at all, just that back when this was originally made, they weren't as liberal with them as the game industry would become later on. Anyway, let's get back to the previous town before we do anything else. Sorry the transition from one save to the next felt a bit abrupt there. I possibly should have hit record while we were still in the menus. I somehow doubt I'm ever gonna remember the name of this town. Hell, I've mostly forgotten the name of the castle we were just, in, even though it was bombed in a very critical scene. I know it starts with a dam and ends with a sea, but I'm a bit hazy about the middle of the name of that castle. And I'm sure I'll have a hard time remembering Anna's name later on. She was only there for the sake of being another tragedy in a game that opened up on a pair of better tragedies that actually touched the main character. Okay, nothing for Edward in the weapon shop. Still, we grabbed a lot that we're not going to be wearing at this point, so may as well start selling it. We've got limited inventory space after all, and no reason to bother keeping stuff that has become obsolete, or stuff that I feel I'm very unlikely to ever use at all. I certainly doubt I'm ever going to use the items that cast spells, so I suppose if an item casts Reflect, I might hold on to it for very special occasions. Nothing in the armor shop for him either. Guess we're just gonna have to hope to find something useful in a random dungeon. Bit annoying since he's a prince, but to be fair, he isn't an explicit warrior like Cecile. His starting weapon is a harp. While he's not an explicit mage, I'm pretty sure that means the way he causes damage is kind of magical in nature somehow. It's not like they play him off as being a bad musician. As a side note, it's a bit interesting that we don't get random encounters while on the hovercraft. I guess that's just gonna be a thing with all the vehicles in all the games, isn't it? Okay, 2 possible locations we could go to at the moment with this thing. Let's go for the cave first. If I'm wrong, it shouldn't take too long to get back out. Antlion's Den. Yeah, I wasn't wrong. This is where we need to be. Now let's see what there is to grab along with the gemstone we actually came here for. Huh. Really? There we are. I was starting to think we didn't have any random encounters in here. Now, I wouldn't have been disappointed by a lack of random encounters, but it's a little hard to get stronger around here without things to fight against. Speaking of strong, bloody hell, it looks like Edward is far less physically durable than a goddamn child. I mean, sure, he's a lower level, but still, not a good look. At least he can take down a goblin in one shot, so he's not pathetic to the point of essentially being unusable. Still, he's stepping into Tella's shoes after we dealt with a lot of bullshit just to get here. So either things need to ease up compared to the previous dungeon, or we're in for a rough time here. Again, I really wish there was some way to brace yourself just before a random encounter, but no! You're just as likely to run into yet another one a few steps later as you are to wait a minute or two for the next fight. And there's no way to tell what you're going to fight when the fight starts. I mean, sure, they do tend to repeat, but still, it's not hard to see why a lot of people were glad when random encounters became less of a thing in gaming. But I feel like the various things that replace it in other games are kind of missing something, and I wish I knew exactly what it was. Lovely. We've got enemies that can only really be hurt by magic, and we've got just one actual magic user on the team. Again, kind of making me miss Tella, but at least Rydia is good enough with magic that she can hold her own for a while. I'd feel more secure if she had something like Osmos to be able to drain MP from various enemies. No! She can only regain MP at this point by using items like an ether or a tent. Ethers are not purchasable as far as I know in this game. We just stumble onto a limited number of them over the course of the entire game. And tents are only usable in the overworld or at save points, not any random point in a frickin' dungeon. Well, the basilisk is new. Please tell me we're not going to end up with anyone turned to stone here. I somehow doubt that lightning would have done more damage to the basilisk, but it's not like Rydia knows fire. Wait, why did the second ice spell do less damage than the first one? It's the same spell cast by the same person against the same target. I mean, sure, every attack in a role-player game typically has some unseen dice roll aspect. After all, Final Fantasy and several other role-player games were inspired by the likes of Dungeons & Dragons tabletop games. And anything that wasn't directly inspired by that was inspired by something that was inspired by Dungeons & Dragons. But I thought the unseen dice rolls around here were just a critical hit, regular hit, or miss. Not the range of damage we do if we land a hit. It's not really that big of a thing, but still, kinda caught me off guard. I wouldn't quite say that Rydia is carrying the team at this point, but she's certainly putting some damn good work in that Cecile couldn't possibly match. They grow up so fast, coming from a helpless child we had to escort to a legitimate fighter in less than an hour. But then you kind of have to, considering the kind of encounter rate we can run into around here. Here's hoping that Rydia's MP can last us until the next save point. We're certainly burning through that part of her stamina at a worrying pace, that's for sure. Okay, no goblins in this group. Not sure if that's a good or bad thing. I suppose it's a good sign that we can kill a pair of more durable enemies before they get the chance to attack us. But unfortunately, we cannot keep that up indefinitely, not with the MP that Rydia has. Kind of wish that Cecile could manage to kill a basilisk in one hit, but apparently that's too much to ask from our only physical fighter. Please tell me the next room has a save point. Rydia is essentially out of ammo here. Nope, just another chest. And just how does a tempting melody translate to doing 10 more points of damage? Really, not much choice but to use the ether on Rydia. We just absolutely need to use magic around here, and she is our only source of actual black magic attacks. Another easy bit of money and experience. Hold on, this looks like a door to progress, and I remember there was at least one more chest in the previous area, so let's grab that before we move on. Well, I suppose now is as good a time as any to start saving. Huh. Nothing in here but a save point and 3 chests, no door forward. For some reason, I thought this would have been the way to forward.